Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast. Hey up, welcome back. This week, for episode 2 of season 5, we're delighted to be joined by Bridget McCutchen, known as Bike.Will.Travel on Instagram. Now, Bridget aiming to be the youngest person to travel all the way round the world. We've never done this before, but we're actually joining Bridget whilst she's en route. She's currently in a very noisy internet cafe in Turkey. So the sound's going to be a bit weird. Hopefully it's not too annoying. I've deadened all the background noise as much as I can, but there's still a little bit of it and it sounds a bit weird too. The good news is it makes Noel sound a bit weird too, which obviously for me is great. Right, let's get on with it.
Are you in some kind of internet cafe or something?
Exactly.
Wow, we've never had this before. This is amazing.
It's a first, isn't it? Live on the road with record-breaking young motorcyclist Bridget McCutchen in an internet cafe in Turkey. Have you listened to the podcast before, Bridget?
I think I've listened to 2 episodes, one of which was Rory's.
Obviously.
When I was in Spain with Rebecca was like, you have to meet Rory. And I was like, who is Rory? And she was like, there's an episode of the podcast and with Rory. So
Before you'd actually met him in real life?
Oh yeah, way before.
And that didn't put you off him?
To be honest, I couldn't understand most of the things he was saying.
How had she found Rory?
She thought he was cool and was, I think the words used was well put together for a young man.
Well put together.
My name is Bridget McCutchen, and I'm currently attempting to set the world record for the youngest woman to go around the world on a motorcycle.
Where are you from, Bridget?
I am from northern Wisconsin.
Whereabouts is Wisconsin?
Wisconsin is in between Michigan and Minnesota. It shares Lake Superior with Canada.
So I'm going to say you're almost Canadian.
We even have poutine.
No idea what that is.
Poutine is French fries with a lot of cheese on it.
Cheesy chips. Do you have gravy on yours?
I think so. I think poutine is, you should look it up. It's very Midwestern.
When you sort of get close to Canada, do people the North Americans, that northerly American, want to be Canadians, or is it the other way around?
I'll let you in on a national secret. All Americans want to be Canadians.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because Canadians, in my experience, don't take kindly, don't know what this means, at being mistaken for Americans, do they? North Americans. No.
Most of them don't. And I think Canada's like sort of the Switzerland of the American continent. Yeah. And they have a very good reputation, and most Americans would like to be either Canadian or associating with Canadians. But actually most of the people in my area or in like Wisconsin, Minnesota, I'm not sure about Michigan so much. There's a lot of people there that are descendant from either the Norse countries like Denmark, Norway, Sweden. And so there's a lot of that around there. And you can hear it. Like when I went to Norway, I was shocked at how much of a phonetical pattern they share with people from northern Wisconsin or Minnesota.
Go Vikings.
I've heard a similar thing with northern English people in Iceland, is that a lot of our dialect right in the north is very similar to Icelandic, which makes sense, doesn't it?
Have you got a family history in motorcycles then? What was the first thing that got you into riding bikes?
The first thing was my older brother Michael got a motorcycle, and I was probably 10, 11. I was very young, and he didn't have a car. He had this motorcycle called Scuff. It was a Honda something. I think it was a 650.
A road bike, do you think?
Yeah. It was sort of like the classic, upright and touring style. And he rode it during Wisconsin winters, which is just insane. And there's pictures of him like shoveling his bike out of snow in the winter to ride it to work or whatever. And he built his own sidecar. He's sort of an engineer. It was cool to see. And then my older brother Thomas got a motorcycle. And then my dad got a motorcycle. And then my sister got a motorcycle. And then my other brother got a motorcycle. And I was like, all right, might as well.
You're one of 6.
I am one of 6.
Are you the youngest?
I am not the youngest. I am the second youngest. It goes Michael, Melissa, Thomas, Amory, me, Sean Paul.
And you all ride motorbikes?
Everyone except for Melissa rides motorcycles, and my mother.
What's going on with Melissa?
Yeah, come on, Melissa, step up.
She can't be asked.
Is everyone in the family riding them recreationally, or did it start off just for commuting on like your brother, or are they keen motorcyclists? Well, obviously they are.
I think I'm the keenest of the bunch at this point, for sure.
Have you ever all gone out riding at the same time? Big family ride out?
Thomas hasn't had a motorcycle since South America. I think because it broke his heart a little bit having to leave his bike behind. The 3 younger siblings have done some stuff together, but never all at once. Because Dad's bike, it didn't work all the time. And every once in a while we borrow each other's bikes, but most of the time only me and Anne-Marie and Sean Paul have functioning motorcycles. When I get back, I really want to take my dad and my sister on a motorcycle trip around the lakes with Kiva.
This is a story we've never heard before, have we? You know, the constant theme, the constant answer to this question is my parents didn't want me to get a motorcycle. And eventually somehow I made it happen, either later in life or something. But we've never heard this, have we? That lots of siblings and parents all riding bikes.
We hadn't until the ABR festival, and I asked Chris Birch that question, and his answer was fairly similar, although he was a lot younger, that he doesn't remember ever not riding a motorbike. His whole family ride bikes, and he was on one from before he could walk almost. That's probably why he's quite good, relatively. But yeah, so asking as a parent now, and so please understand my concern. What do your parents think about this trip that you're doing? So never mind the fact that their whole family are riding these horribly dangerous motorbikes, but you're now travelling the world. Part of me would be insanely proud if one of my guys did it, but I'd also be worried. Where are they on the scale of proud to worried?
I think my dad is very excited about the whole thing. When I told we were having a bonfire, we actually got the whole family together. I don't remember why, which is rare because we've all grown up, moved places. And I told everybody, and my mom literally just put her head in her hands and was like, really? Like another one of my children doing something really dangerous. But she was like, all right, that's cool too. She was very supportive. She was just very concerned. And my dad was like...
For those listening in black and white, Bridget just did a very excited face with jazz hands. What's your dad's name?
Jeff.
Daughter of Jeff, son of Simon. Where did you start this trip from? Where have you been and where are you going?
I started in northern Wisconsin, specifically Ashland, Wisconsin, at my brother's house, Michael, the one who first got motorcycles. I bounced around the States for a little bit, and at this point I had met my good friend and riding partner Kiva, who would go with me through Central and South America. We bopped around the States, or I bopped around the States, and then we met up in San Diego, California. Then we went through Baja, Mexico, over to mainland Mexico. We spent a lot of time in Mexico. And then we went very quickly through all of Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. I think that's all the ones that we went through. And then we flew from Panama City to Colombia using a company called Cargo Rider, for anyone who wants to know. They're very easy to get a hold of. And Colombia's really cool. We went to Bogota, Colombia, which was a really cool city with a really extreme amount of street art in a really good way. They have just street art everywhere, and not just graffiti, street art that is really intricate and beautiful. And then from Colombia, we went to Ecuador, Peru, Chile, Bolivia, Argentina, Chile, Argentina, Chile, Argentina, Chile, Argentina, all the way down to Ushuaia, Argentina, which some of you might. And then we went back up to Buenos Aires, Argentina. Kiva stayed behind for a while, and then I went to Uruguay, and then flew from Uruguay to Spain. And then from Spain, France, England, Wales, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland for about 5 seconds.
What happened to Scotland? Because I was trying to persuade you, wasn't I, to go north in Scotland. But what happened for you to do the opposite of the thing that I was pushing you?
I went to Scotland, and I had just gone like the wild Atlantic way through Ireland, and it was really beautiful. Camped like the whole time, had a great time, loved the people. Went over to Scotland with the intention of going up, and then coming back down. But my crash bars were like completely broken.
From crashing?
I needed to get them fixed, and I was really paranoid about not being able to get them fixed in time. Also, Rory was the one helping me fix them. I spent one night in Scotland. It was very, very cold. I was a little sick of camping. I was like, this is beautiful, but it's cold as balls. I'm going to go fix my crash bars. I'm going to go see Rory. And that's what I did. Everybody was very upset, and I'm like, I'll be back. Just calm down. After that, I went back to France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany. Me and my sister flew in, and we went to a Swedish metal band concert in Germany, which was great fun. So after Germany, I went to Munich. The concert was in Munich. And then I went to the Netherlands to visit my friend Vanessa, and then Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, back to Germany. Well, back to Germany, and then...
This is turning into a very squiggly line.
Spaghetti on a map, bro.
Yeah. Guinness at this point thinking, what the hell is going on with this girl?
Yeah, probably. But it's sort of like in a Easter direction-ish.
Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe we should just talk a little bit about the whole Guinness thing and how that started and how that's going. Yeah. How did it start?
And is it the main reason you're traveling?
It's not as important as it used to be, but I'll get into that later. So it started with Thomas, the one that I went to South America. At the time I was 20. He explained about like Henry Crew and how he had done the record, and he basically said, I'm too old to do it, but you are 20, so you go do it. Very prime example of siblings transferring responsibility is the right word. So that's where the idea came from, and I sort of tossed it around for a while, and I had literally up to this point never left the country, never left America, and eventually I hit Claude, and I was like, the only reason I wouldn't, like there's no reason for me to not try.
Henry Crew is the current record holder, isn't he? And he did it on his Ducati Scrambler, which when he got back to the UK was stolen. Unbelievable. So he was 24 when he finished, wasn't he?
He was like a few days away from being 24, I think.
So how long have you got left then? And where do you need to be before your 23rd birthday?
I would like to be home before my 23rd birthday. I would like to be done and over with by November 16th. So I'm hoping to either be back in the States on November 1st or slightly earlier than that. And technically the record is categorized like male, female, and there's no record set for youngest woman. So technically I can take as long as I want, but I have other things to do.
How soon into the trip did the whole Guinness thing and the time frame that you needed to do it in sort of kick in? Did you feel under pressure from the get-go that you were sort of against the clock a little bit? And did you ever regret that?
The pressure of time?
Yeah.
At the time, like, I hadn't traveled at all, so I didn't, like, all I had done is gone from one place to the other, like, very quickly. So that's what I was doing. And Kiva was like, slow down. Like, you're traveling to see things and to do things and not just ride your motorcycle, even though that's what we're on. So at first I really didn't notice, but later, like, especially in Central America, we went through Central America in 15 days, like the whole thing. I would never travel this way again because it's awful. Like, I can't stay in one place for more than 2 weeks. I constantly am like worried about timing and visas and like weather and blah, 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 blah.
But what's at stake?
haven't gone-
Aside from sort of, getting this record, is there anything else at stake?
So the thing is, at this point, is I've done a lot of public funding, like my GoFundMe. No one's holding me responsible with me at this point. But I feel like because people have basically paid me
Yeah, of
to
course.
do this, I have an obligation to see it through and to get it done. So I would say my honor's at stake.
So where have you got to go to, and when do you need to be home by?
I have currently in Turkey. I'm going to go through Iraq, Iraq, Kuwait. That was the one. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Arab Emirates, Iran, Pakistan, India, Nepal, and then I fly over Myanmar because Myanmar's land border is closed. So to Thailand, and then Thailand, Malaysia, and then back home.
Are you doing all the admin for this on the hoof? Are you doing this as you go, getting all your visas sorted and things? Or have you got a whole backup team?
No, I've literally, the last 3 days, I've been in this cafe working out specifically the Pakistani and Indian visas, which are done online. So the Indian visa I just applied for, and hopefully I'll get it. I probably will. If you try and go over land, the only place you can get that visa is in Pakistan, and you have to do this whole rigmarole, and it can take from 1 to 6 weeks. So you have to extend your Pakistani visa, which is $200, and then all of this. Or you could apply online, fly in, activate it, and then you have a 2-year multiple, I think it's a 3-year multiple entry visa. And so that's what I'm doing, is I'm flying from Nepal to India for a day, activating my visa, coming back. Nepal? No, I'm flying from Oman to India and back, just to activate my visa. And I have to do a similar thing in Iraq, because there's Kurdistan and there's federal Iraq. So I have to fly from Kurdistan, which is very north.
You've still got a really long way to go. And how long have you got left to do it?
4 months.
Okay, so not so bad.
But that's 4 months. That's just a date that you've set yourself, isn't it? That's not that.
That's before your birthday, presumably.
I would really like to get it done before my birthday. And aside from that, I'm burnt out.
Is that how you feel now?
It comes and it goes, but recently there was a period there, a month, I say a week ago, that I was just tired all the time, just wanted to be done.
But when you get on the bike and start riding again, do you immediately feel like, no, this is great? Or do you immediately feel like, no, I really have had enough of this? Does riding the bike rejuvenate you, or just the opposite?
Most of the time riding the bike is very restful, and it's not the thing I get burned out on the most. And the reason that this last month has been so stressful is because I was planning on going through Russia. So it would have been one country, no visas, no carnet, and now I have tons of visas, tons of countries. I have a carnet, which is going to be I think it's $3,000, almost $4,000 that I have to come up with. So that was why it was so stressful, is because I had a budget and I had all this sorted, and I was like, all right, I can enjoy myself, blah, blah, blah. And then the rug was pulled down from underneath me, and I all of a sudden had this massive thing facing me down. And luckily I have all these connections and all these friends that have helped me, and now I'm starting to look up, and I'm starting to get excited about going through Asia, because it really is amazing. It's Iraq, Saudi Arabia, those areas are the birthplace of civilization. It's super cool. But I didn't know any of that because I wasn't planning on going through those areas.
And so far, you've had great connections, haven't you? In all the countries it seems you've travelled through, you've met with people that you've kind of met online, or I don't know how you've met them, but there's always been somebody to meet up with, which has obviously been a great part of the trip. Have you got people in these countries that have been in touch that you're seeing, or are you now leaving familiar people behind?
I think there's going to be a few. Europe was a particular concentration of people that I knew from, honestly, South America.
Right.
There are a few people that I'm going to go see there. No one that I know already, but people that I've, like you said, met online or have offered me places to stay, which is always really cool. And even here in Turkey, there's been very random people that are very friendly. The people here are very friendly and will come up and talk to you, and they're very hospitable. And I think as a Westerner, I'm sort of tussling with this idea of what the West thinks these Eastern countries and putting that up over the reality of what's going on. And I think that's slowly being taken down. South America, like I didn't have any preconceptions on South America, but of course the East, as a Westerner, you've been told so many things, and some of them are true and some of them are not. There's a lot.
In the most part, would you say the things you've heard aren't true?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
Just starting, like, Turkey is where the West meets the East.
Yeah.
And so far, people have been very hospitable. From what I've heard from other travelers, I'm going to sort of become like a novelty.
Yeah.
Like this white woman on a motorcycle, which I'm okay with. Like, I'm coming into like their culture, and even in mine, I'm not exactly the most common thing in the world.
The first time, I don't know how I was steered towards it, whether Rory told me about it or whether you were just popped up in my Instagram feed. Who are you on Instagram? What's your Instagram account?
I am Bike.Will.Travel on Instagram, and there's a dot in between bike and travel.
Well, as always, I would urge anyone to go over and look at that. But one of the first posts I saw was of you changing a tire, and it was you cursing, "What deity have I pissed off to make punches in one day?" Do you remember that? You were changing a puncture on your back tire in South America. It's a great Instagram post. That's the one I would say, look at that. And I liked it because I think that's a really good measure of somebody's personality, is how they deal with their second puncture on the road, by the side of the road, and it's a rear tire. And just seeing, because that's you at your worst, isn't it? I would fail miserably in this. I would hate for someone to point a camera in my face doing that. You pointed your own camera in your own face. It was the valve imploding, wasn't it? I think you said.
Okay, that was the second one. Sorry, we cut out there for a second. Yeah, the first one was in Ecuador, and I had my friends Kiba and Ryan, someone that we traveled with for a while, were with us. The tire got a nail in it, and we ended up talking to these kids, and they like brought us over a mango, and there was this stray dog that like came over and said hi, and it was honestly very funny. The second one, that was hell.
Exasperated, yeah.
Well, it was just after this terrible week where in literally 1 week, Kiva's chain broke 2 times. I got stuck in the desert for a day while she went and got her chain. We got robbed. I got hit by a car, and her chain broke again within 1 week. And then literally, like, I went to Santiago. She stayed behind because she needed to get some stuff. Like, during this week, before I got hit by the car. I go to Santiago. I get hit by the car. We get stuff sorted in Santiago. A lot of stuff gets mailed to us from the States. Like these wonderful women from Wima, I think it's called, and they bring us all of this stuff from the States to help Kiva like replace all her gear and me, and so that was really positive. And then I'm literally leaving the fucking city. Am I allowed to swear?
No.
So I leave the fucking city, and my front tire is flat. Like I have this feeling, the front tire is flat, and I think it was because I didn't put like not the valve itself in tight enough, but like the little, actually it would be the valve. I didn't think it was because of that, so there was no hole, but I still had to take the tire off. And then the inner tube fucking explodes, and it's just been such a time.
I want to talk a little bit more about the rules for breaking the record. To get the Guinness World Record, you have to travel around the world 24,500 miles. You have to start and finish in the same place. And, as something I didn't know, you have to go through the antipodal point. So basically, the nearest place exactly on the other side of the world to where you started. Now, for you, that's the middle of the Indian Ocean.
So there's actually Lima, Peru has an antipodal point in Thailand. So that's where I'm going.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be from where you started. It can be from anywhere else on the trip.
Yeah.
I loved this actually when I found this out. There's a website called Geodatos, GEODATOS.net, and it will tell you the antipodal point of anywhere in the world. If I was to start my journey in Coventry, for example, I would have to go through some place in New Zealand.
Literally the opposite side of the world to where you set off from.
Exactly, yeah. The furthest point, or the furthest town or city, the furthest populated point away from where you actually, and it can tell you any of those. But then you also have to have witness reports, daily notes, a logbook, photos, videos, receipts, and a GPS route. Are you doing all that as well?
I'm doing as much of that as possible. And I have So I've had quite a bit of trouble with my GPS stuff. So I have 3 forms of GPS tracking. I have a spot tracker, I have a Garmin InReach, and then I have Google Maps. So Google Maps, you can set it up to record where you go, and it's a little scary because it'll record like where you stop, the businesses that you stop, when you stopped. Sometimes it knows if you're riding a motorcycle, if you're in a car, it knows when you're walking. So I have a lot of information there. I'm hoping it's going to, because there's some points where the spot has like lost battery, and I didn't have batteries at the time, and I couldn't find one, or the Garmin didn't work for whatever reason. So there's holes in pretty much every one of these, and I'm hoping Guinness will accept all of them sort of put together.
So obviously you're working hard now to get this Plan B journey and route in place. Do you feel a little bit nervous about heading into Iran and Iraq and Pakistan and places like that, or are you feeling pretty comfortable?
I'm definitely a little nervous. The thing I'm most nervous about is like accidentally offending someone.
That's the same as you, Clive. Same as you. Well, that's a good thing to be worried about, isn't it? If that's the least of your worries is offending someone, come on, it's going to be fine.
I'm kind of worried about attracting unwanted attention.
Forget about being worried, because it's more about being excited, isn't it? These are the most exciting places yet that you're about to see and travel through, surely.
For sure. I think this is going to be probably the most difficult and rewarding part of this trip so far.
The bad news is life's all downhill after you've done this trip. This is the best bit.
Incorrect. I'm going to finish getting my captain's license after this. I'm going to get my pilot's license. I'm probably going to go at least to Cape Horn on a sailboat. I have other things to do.
Okay.
That sounds amazing. I feel like a underachiever now.
So let's just talk about, how did you settle on the bike that you've chosen for this trip?
Well, tell us what the bike is. Don't tell us it's got a fucking name. We're not having a named motorcycle. If it has got a name, don't tell us the stupid name. I know what it is already.
Do you? What's the name?
Is it Kevin?
Mab.
Is Mab. The name of this motorcycle is very important, actually. It has, I think, a very good story behind it. But if you don't want to hear it, I won't tell you.
No, we want to hear it.
Oh, tell us the fucking story.
So I have a Kawasaki Versys X300. It is a 2020. Great bike. Great gas mileage. Can't really say anything bad about it. It doesn't break. I'm gentle on it, but the only problem, other than things that I've caused, like the battery, I've had one leaky fork seal, and that's it. I had considered other bikes. This bike was suggested by my brother Thomas. I really liked the Africa Twins. I thought they were cool.
It's a huge bike, isn't it? An Africa Twin. A lot bigger than the 300.
It is a huge bike, but eventually I went with this one because it's very cheap. Like, other than the Himalayan, it's the cheapest adventure bike on the market, and it's Kawasaki. It's ridiculously reliable. I've gone 80,000 kilometers on this bike, and nothing has happened.
You shouldn't have said that out loud. The minute you leave that cafe, it's going to fall apart.
It's not.
How many services in that 70-something kilometers?
One.
Just one. Wow,
In Germany.
isn't it?
And they just checked it. They checked the timing. They adjusted it like a little bit, and that was it. They were like, this bike is doing very well. And it was actually Kawasaki Germany that did it. Thank you, guys.
Talk to us about Kiva. You've been doing quite a bit of travelling with Kiva. Is Kiva also from home?
I met Kiva a month before I left. I met her July 5th, 22, and she literally, when I met her, she didn't have her motorcycle license. She had just done the test. Before we left, like, I called her a pretty decent amount, and I was like, Kiva, like, this is serious. This is more serious than marriage. Or you can ask her. I said that to her, absolutely. She got the same bike as me. She has a Versys 300 too. That was actually just happenstance. Like, I didn't tell her this is the only bike. We met up in San Diego. We did in the entirety of South America together. She came over to Europe. Currently she has a press bike and is in Germany right now. She's awesome.
How did she get a press bike?
We were contacted by Kawasaki Germany, and we went to a Kawasaki Days event. Kiva she's starting to be a journalist, I guess. She's done like some stories on me and some stories for other magazines. I don't remember exactly how it came up, whether she asked or they offered, but she got the press bike for 4 weeks. It's actually Versys, I think 650.
Right.
We actually did the highest mountain pass in
Familiar,
Italy.
wasn't it?
Yeah, and she took that bike, and it has like street tires on it, and it's just a fucking beast. And she's smaller than me. I think she's 5'4". So she's just, this tiny little woman on this giant motorcycle.
So you got up. What did you got up to the snow line on that track? Did
Yeah.
you? And then walked the last bit.
Yeah, we just walked a little last bit, and then Johnny was with us. Clive, Johnny.
Spent a weekend with him at the first Lightweight Adventurers Festival, yeah.
He was on his little Honda, and we all went up there, and it was a great time.
So I'm just looking at the Versys X300, which is available in the UK. Starting price from £5,149. Looks like it's got a 19-inch front wheel, a spoke wheel. It's not a bike I'm conscious of, really.
No, it's not a very common bike here, is it? It's like the Yamaha
No.
MTs.
But it is available in the UK.
From what I understand it's pretty overlooked because, like, in the UK and, frankly, Europe, the UK, and America, like, everybody's into these big adventure bikes. And I feel like only recently these smaller adventure bikes are becoming more popular because I think people are realizing they don't need all this power, because you get all this power, you get all this weight.
It's actually our podcast that's doing that. We are trendsetters and influencers, as you probably know.
Give us some stats. What's the weight of it?
175 kgs. That's pretty heavy, isn't it? 19-inch front wheel, 17-inch rear.
Clive's dying to know what the miles to the gallon is.
I'm not even looking at that. It's irrelevant.
Give us the gas mileage then on it.
As a 18-liter tank, I can get 450 kilometers.
And have you done much off-roading on it?
Lately, quite a bit. Previous to this trip, I had never done off-roading, barely ridden a motorcycle. I had a Ninja 250 before this. Now I've done quite a bit, and I'm pretty novice. I quite like it at low speeds. The only thing I don't like about it is it's really too low, 6-7 inches of clearance, and that's been something I've been sort of passively trying to fix as I go along.
Have you been on the Tet at all? Did you get on the Tet in Spade?
I did. I went on the Spanish Tet up north. The Spanish Tet is amazing, by the way. It's beautiful. And then I went over to Barcelona, and that Tet got interesting, just like the Tet before Barcelona, because it's all up in the mountains, and they're like really steep hills, and there were some sections of it just had these big boulders, and it was like such a steep hill. Like, you're on the front brake or on the back brake, you're just basically skiing down this hill. And I'm fully loaded. I think it's like 50 kilos of weight on the back, which is like 80 pounds. So there's a lot going on back there, and I can't just take that off, go down the hill.
I've noticed you've got some Moscow gear. Who else have you got supporting you?
So I have Moscow and then Aero Stitch are my main two apparel people. Tucker Power Sports helped me out a lot when I was starting out with some gear. Like, they gave me my boots.
Tucker, is that an American retailer? I'm not familiar with that name.
Yeah, it's an American distributor. So they typically distribute parts.
And the crowdfunding thing that you put out, was that before you'd set off, or were you sort of into the trip and getting low on funds? And what was the response to it?
I started the GoFundMe before I left because I knew my savings weren't going to be enough for what I needed to do. And originally I was very, you're sort of taught to not ask for stuff. And crowdfunding can be very controversial. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. Like, I'd try and find another way. And there was a friend of mine that was just like, people want to help you. Like, it's not about you completely. Like, let people help. And I was like, okay. And so I set that up. In Mexico, an article came out about me on CNN, and it just blew up. And it was really nice. And I would not be in Turkey without that.
How can people donate to your Plan B emergency fund to get you the rest of the way around the world?
So there's a few options. I have like a PayPal and a Venmo, and then I'm working on a Redbubble shop that I hopefully will have up soon.
What's the URL for your website?
twowheelsround.com. Also, if you look up Bridget McCutchen, it comes right up.
twowheelsround.com. But if we search for Bridget McCutchen, that should bring it up as well. So yeah, basically Bridget's had to change her route, Plan B, rather than go straight through Russia. She's having to spend an awful lot more money, travelling through many different countries, carnets, visa costs, shipping costs once you get to Malaysia. We'll get you there.
It's about 13,000 more than I estimated for.
Dollars or real money?
It's all about the bleeding same these days. So listen, as far as I'm concerned, this is probably part one of a two-part episode, Bridget, because obviously you're halfway around, I suppose, geographically.
A little more than halfway.
I think we've possibly got enough for part 1. Let's do it again in a few months' time. Is there anything else you wanted to say? Anything more you wanted to get out there or need to get out there?
I don't think about the trip. I will say I'll put in a little inspirational bit. Growing up, I was a homeschooled farm kid, so I did nothing. And the only reason I did nothing is because I didn't know I could do it. When you go around and you keep telling yourself that you can't or you shouldn't do adventures or do whatever, it doesn't have to be going around the world on a motorcycle. It could be going to Utah or whatever in the States. Just take a few more minutes to examine why the thing that you really want to do is not possible, and you might find some holes in it that you drive a motorcycle through.
There's a whole thing, though, that we haven't really examined with women travelling on their own, things like that. But I don't think we need to. Do you know what I mean? You're just out there and doing it, really. I think you see a lot of Instagram posts with women riders going, talking about fear and things like that, and how they need to help each other to actually get out on a motorbike. Somehow that doesn't really seem relevant to you because it doesn't seem to faze you at all.
For the most part, no. I think for the majority. And I think part of that is because the way I was raised was I didn't get a lot of that. I was with my family. I wasn't told like I was supposed to be afraid of something or I couldn't do something.
I think this is the great thing about homeschooling. You just don't get conditioned in the same way at all, do you?
No, you really don't. And there's pros and cons to this. Like socially, it can be really hard going from a place you really understand and are very comfortable and isolated into the rest of the world and having to understand like these weird invisible social constructs that people like you can't do that, you can't be loud, you can't climb that, you can't pick up that lizard whatever.
Listen, I think what you're doing is amazing. It's absolutely brilliant.
You are aware how you're going to look back at this time of your life, aren't you? You've got to really keep that in mind, that this is absolutely one of many, hopefully, but this is certainly a big golden era of your life, isn't it?
I think so. I think that I'm going to look back. A lot of things are going to start from this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, that's where it started.
Indeed, that is where it started. So this is probably part 1 of at least 2, maybe 3 different parts. We're going to aim to catch up with Bridget again, maybe when she's further into Asia, and also once she's completed the trip, hopefully before her next birthday, which will make her the new world record holder. An absolutely massive thanks to Bridget for taking the time out to do that while she was sorting out her various visas for Pakistan and Iraq and Iran. As Bridget has mentioned, she is still trying to raise a bit of cash so she can actually complete her journey. She's had to go with plan B. She can't go straight through Russia. She's having to raise a lot more money to pay for visas and shipping of the bike and various flights to fly into capitals, get a visa, fly back to where her bike is and continue her journey. If you have any spare cash, please search for Bridget McCutchen GoFundMe. If you search for GoFundMe, all as one word, I'm sure she'll be very grateful of any donation, no matter how small or large. I just wanted to say what utter admiration I've got for Bridget. She's in her very early 20s, and I think what she's doing is a remarkable thing, and she's doing it with a lot of humility, grace, calm, and absolute fearlessness. So massive kudos to her for that. Right, that's it for this week. We've got another one in the can, ready for me to start editing as soon as I've finished editing this one. Oh, just one more thing. I just wanted to mention we've got a whole new shop with a load of merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, that type of thing for both men and women. So if you wanted to support the podcast, go and buy some. Some of it's quite funny. Right, see you next week. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you really appreciate what we do, you could consider supporting us on Patreon or buy us a coffee. Links are available on our website, which is tampodcast.com, tampodcast.com, where we also have a limited selection of branded stuff. But either way, please keep listening and spreading the word. See you next time.